0.10 costs more than you would think. Originally posted this in the wrong sub, so I decided to repost it here. Apologies if you've already seen this one. Up until a few months ago I worked for one of the large soda/cola companies. I won't name which one, but trust me, you've had at least one of their products in your lifetime. I started off in the warehouse as an order selector, the pay was decent at the time, and after 3 years I moved to an auditor position at the trucking gate. Now the plant wasn't too bad, and I ended up making an entire host of friends I still speak with to this day. The major problem with the company was the attitude of anyone not on an hourly wage, i.e., the executive branch. To give you an example, when nearly my entire state froze over last January, management originally planned to use our PTO, paid time off, to pay for work days missed due to the hazardous road conditions. For those of you in the north, the big freeze completely shut down any and all services over the course of a week, including transportation, i.e. metro buses and light rail trains. Of course, once this got back to the workers, there was an entire blow-up that forced a town hall meeting with words like strike and walkout thrown around, and management quickly changed course. This is just one of many, many stories I could tell here. As for my personal story, my move was a gift and a bane simultaneously. When the pandemic began, many of us increasingly became hesitant to come to work. We were labeled essential workers during the initial stay-at-home order, yet had no protections from COVID. No masks, no sanitizers, no protocols. A number of people left/let themselves be terminated once unemployment benefits were severely increased. Eventually the company gave us a pay incentive of about 20% to keep us there. The pay incentive was later made permanent in an attempt to replenish the work pool. Unfortunately, I didn't receive that pay raise. A little before this was made official, I was moved without my consent to basically a general labor job, a jack of all trades, by a former shift supervisor. We weren't friends basically. When I questioned HR about this, I was told that the pay incentive was for the order selector position, which I no longer did. At that moment I applied to move out of the warehouse immediately, seeing as people who were just starting the job, some of whom I was currently training at the time, were making well more than myself, who had been there for over 3 years. A slap in the face to say the least. I started my position at the gate, auditing our delivery trucks returning from their routes, counting product basically, and inspecting the loads common carriers, rig drivers, would pick up. Easy job despite the heavy footwork, and I was working in an office with friends who had also left the warehouse for something better. The biggest problem was being understaffed, as I worked 10 HR days, 6 days a week since there was no one else to fully cover the truck's departure and return to the facility. Someone simply had to be at the gate, and thus that someone was me. Management, wondering why I was accumulating so much overtime, couldn't do much to stop me, seeing as they had no plans to hire anyone to take some of the load off due to budgetary restraints. Stepping into the Wayback Machine, 2 years earlier the company decided to go the more health-conscious route, i.e. our insurance costs had risen, and switched out the usual basic vending machines in the break room. Installed now were 3 fridges of healthy off-brand alternatives, cheap meal packs you would see at Walmart next to the costlier name-brand items. Also installed were 2 kiosks for payment. You grab whatever food you want, scan it on the screen, and pay. The kiosk gave no change back. If your meal was $4 and you paid with a $5 bill, you just lost $1, so nearly all of us paid by card. I bought from the kiosk once per day with my card for lunch, to the point I could do the process blindfolded. Also, there were cameras attached to the kiosks, just in case someone, there's always one, decides to try a quick dine and dash without paying. Now here comes the fun part. Typical Saturday shift. I come into work, check my trucks, start working on my end-of-day reports, and go to lunch. Now all of us have that one annoying coworker who wants to tell you their life story. And of course, he's in the break room for lunch and wants to dictate his latest sob story. I'm normally a nice guy and try not to be rude, so while somewhat listening to the same complaints he's already spilled to me before, I rush to just grab my food, pay with my card, clock out for lunch, and head back to my area. Basically, I was hurrying to get the hell away from him. A month later my current supervisor, good guy who he takes care of his workers, pulls me outside. I was flagged at the machine for non-payment on the day described above, meaning the company thought I had stolen the food. You see, when you used a credit/debit card at the kiosk, it asks if you'll accept the 0.10 surcharge for using said card. Apparently I had missed that prompt to accept it, thus management declaring it as theft. I ended up having to print out my bank statement for that particular day to show the payment had gone through, and then write a statement saying this was just a misunderstanding, and would allow the entire charge to be taken out of my next check. It was only about $3.50 total. And so, I thought that would be the end of it. No one spoke to me any further about the situation, including the person who ended up being the one to review the camera footage. More on that in a minute. Another month later, my supervisor pulls me into his office and lets me know management is terminating me. His hands were tied, seeing as it was a him or me decision, and I was being let go for a health and safety violation. In the years prior, the only mark on my record was a write-up for attendance for calling off work due to a mental health issue, clinical depression. And they had chosen to escalate this to firing me over 0.10. One single dime. After turning in my badge and clearing my laptop of any work files, I left and began the process of finding another job while also filing a report with the ethics committee. My supervisor and former co-worker convinced me to fight back for my job. They needed me since I was the only one willing to work the long hours, and do all of the reports to be sent off, but after trying to get a hold of HR for 2 weeks and getting no response, I gave up and resumed my search for employment. Turns out this event was a blessing in disguise. See, the guy who reviewed the camera footage was the facility supervisor, let's call him Tom. Tom and I, while being professional, never got along. He viewed me as just another nameless worker drone, and I viewed him as corporate snake with a Cheshire smile. Tom was the guy my supervisor directly reported to, hence the him or me decision. Tom passed me in the hallways almost every single day, even while all of this was happening, and never did more than give off his usual "Hello op, don't work too hard out there." Tom had the final call on these matter. Tom also, it turns out, was over the yearly budget. So remember when I said a number of people had left? Well, due to being so short-handed, everyone from the warehouse to distribution to the drivers to the production teams were forced to work overtime in an attempt to catch up to missed/delayed orders. 6 days a week, no set end time, you leave when work is finished, which ended up causing another mass exodus despite pay increases. Being short-staffed, they couldn't simply move someone into my position, causing the team leads to do work they weren't trained for. Oh, and the team leads were salary, so no overtime for them. This was 3 months ago now. I start work at a new company in a few weeks in shipping and receiving. My old co-workers recently told me Tom was forced to hire 3 new people to replace me, despite all the previous blustering about budgetary concerns, and none of them are going to last till the end of the year. Reason? It's currently summertime down here in the south, with the daily temperature hitting 100* on average, and when your job is to audit trucks, you spend a lot of time outside in the heat. None of them have learned the reporting software, and spend most of their time in the office on their phones. So, instead of making a rational decision on a seasoned worker who liked his job and willingly did the dirty work, Tom had to hire 3 new guys, at $15 an hour, to fill in for one guy, all over a 0.10 surcharge. Oh, and I no longer drink dark soda/cola anymore. TLDR, manager fired me over 0.10, is finding out it would have been cheaper to keep me. Interviewer immediately dismisses me after I inform that I would have 2 jobs if I worked there. I, F17, applied to a cashier position at a Harvey's. I currently work 2 waitressing jobs but was going to leave one to pick up a new job as I needed more hours. I was invited to an interview at Harvey's and had accepted. When the interview started I was asked about why I was planning to leave my waitressing job. Only one was on my resume as I knew I was leaving the other. I was honest and told her that I was keeping that one as I wanted to have a second job. She scoffed and said no. We don't hire people who will work 2 jobs. I explained that my waitress job doesn't give me enough hours as it's an event-based job, so I'd be available almost every day. She rolled her eyes and said no. Because I will need you for 3 to 4 shifts a week, I don't think you can do that. I was going to try to reason but decided not to. If she acts like this in an interview, I'm worried how she'd be as a boss. I've already worked for Walmart and that was terrible. I think I dodged a bullet with this. Left my previous job and empowered my co-workers to do the same. Proud of what I've done and proud of my past co-workers for doing the same. December 2020, year of the shutdown, I got a new job. It's a skilled labor job that requires you to be on the road 8 to 5 completing as many service jobs as you possibly can. Doesn't matter your skill level, difficulty of job or distance traveled, the goal is 5 to 7 per day and you'll hear about it if you didn't reach that goal. I came in with extremely relevant experience but still had to learn about 50% new skills on the job. I knew this gig wouldn't last cause I truly felt like just a number and it was way too corporate. After a year I asked for a raise. Boss said sorry, it's out of my power. We do raises in July. I didn't qualify for a raise last July since I wasn't there for a year. So I started looking for a new job, got an offer for 20% increase, put in my 2 weeks, didn't ask to stay. I was the youngest employee in the state by about 10 years. Average age out of 20 guys probably being 50 years old and a handful ready for retirement. As I was leaving I asked 6 guys what they were making. Each one was either the same or less than me. They each said they've had raises denied or have gotten 50-cent raises each year. A few were there for 10 plus years. Now I'm no genius but that sounds like some bullshit to me. So I told them what I made and watched their eyes widen. Since I left 6 months ago, 50% of those guys have quit. One of them thanked me cause he was afraid to move on but he got a $10/HR pay increase at his new gig. They were all denied raises and their customers are not happy. Pay your employees. They deserve it. Also forgot to mention that when my boss hired me he told me not to tell anyone what I made. Oops. Why do recruiters offer highly qualified people entry-level positions? I've been very successfully freelancing for 2.5 years now. Every now and then recruiters reach out to me on LinkedIn and 99% of the time they're for positions I'm just not willing to leave freelancing for. Today I got a reminder of why I never ever want to go back to working in the corporate sector. A recruiter reached out to me for an associate, aka entry-level, position that reports to a manager and indirectly reports to a director. I have over 15 years experience in my job and my last FT position was at an assistant director level. My LinkedIn profile clearly lists this plus additional technical expertise I've trained and specialize in as a freelancer, along with a list of my several clients where I serve as a consultant and primary contractor for these highly technical services. The fact that a corporate recruiter sees this and has the audacity to offer me an entry-level position is beyond insulting. This is why I will never allow my livelihood to be controlled by these clueless hacks ever again. Just an FYI, if you're a recruiter and you're offering entry-level positions to people who are grossly overqualified for them, you're the reason no one wants to work in the private sector anymore. I have a friend who was fired for following requirements to report an incident to the state. What recourse is there for her? They said she is not terminated but that they no longer need her services. She is an occupational therapist. Fired over walking out of shift. Was working at a popular chicken fast food place. Ever since I got hired one of our managers has been unreasonable and incredibly rude to us, never actually attempts to manage our schedules and expects all employees to be available every day of the week. She would ignore our availability notices so she could write us up whenever we couldn't come in. Didn't come in on a Saturday BC. I told my managers I can't work Saturdays. Next day I come in and she's yelling at me in the back office about not notifying her I couldn't come in the day before, yet I had told her multiple times in person that I dropped my shift and I tried to call in but no one ever answers the restaurant phone and I have proof of me trying to contact her with no response. 3 weeks later, last Thursday, I come in 20 minutes late and explained why I arrived late but she basically just said she should have fired me 3 weeks ago when I missed that one shift. The same day a few hours later I was fed up by her complaining every day at me and everyone else no matter how hard we work, so I walk out of my shift whilst she's nagging me and I got officially fired the next day. I've told the shift managers about this manager and filed a complaint on the company website but haven't heard anything yet. I'm glad I don't have to put up with her anymore, but a majority of the employees and even shift managers completely hate her and the way she runs our store, but I'm not sure any amount of complaints will get her relocated or fired. Uneasy face. How do I find a job that doesn't make me want to kill myself? Last spring I graduated with a degree in history, but now I'm right back where I started at a shitty retail job where I'm working my body into the ground. There's nothing nearby except for retail, food service, and scammy office jobs. I can't afford to commute, either in gas or maintenance on my 20-year-old car. I can't afford to move because I'm living with my parents. I don't have the time or energy to learn new skills because every day off is just me recuperating to do that next stretch of work. Is this it? Is this all I have to look forward to? Why am I not just saving myself the trouble and offing myself? I don't see a reason to go on. Nephew works in Amazon warehouse. Told me a few months back an older man upstairs died of a heart attack at work. They drug him outside before calling 911. Also, his co-worker hurt her hand and he was trying to help her and was told to stop helping her and mind his own area.